Club isn't the best place to find a lover, so the bar is where I go. Me and my friends at the table doing shots.
Today we are going to be discussing the chapter 2 of the human resource management under the gaining a competitive advantage. And the title of the chapter 2 is the strategic human resource management. Now, after learning and discussing the chapter, you will be able to understand and describe the differences between strategy formulation and the strategy implementation. And some of the components of the strategic management process would also be tackled. Now the role of the HRM function in strategy formulation will also be emphasized. And then linkages between HRM and formulation of the strategy will also be reconciled, no, and be understood. And then the popular typologies of generic strategies, HRM practices are being compared, no, and that's it, no, associated practices there, no, so there. And then the goal of the strategic management is to deploy and understand, allocate resources in a way that the organizations has to stand competition and be at the edge of competitive advantage. So that's part of the goal now. Now the HRM function must be, heavily and integrally, involved in the company's formulation of strategic management process. Now we define what is strategic management. According to the concept, it's an approach, a process approach to addressing the competitive challenges of the current situation of any organization. So knowing the process, the right process, the current situation, the approach to addressing that current situation to be competitive to the industry is the strategic management as a definition. Now, strategic human resource management is a pattern or of planned human resource. So you're talking about human capital here, no? Deployment and activities that are intending to achieve the goals of the company, by determining the proper human resource composition. Now, the components of the strategic management process is the two of them. No? It's strategy formulation and strategy implementation. Now, the models of which that are going to be discussed and be provided in your PowerPoint presentation would lead us to the models of the strategic process management process. Now, the forecast, starting from the forecasting in the strategy formulation and ending in the implementation of a firm, that in its performance, productivity, measuring quality and profitability even. So that is the model of the strategic management process. But you would be provided with a copy of it that I will be submitting in your emails. The role of the HRM in strategy formulation framework would tell us about the linkages of the following aspects. So the administrative linkage and one-way linkage, two-way linkage, and the integrative linkage. So in all of these linkages, two components are important for them to process. So under which are the strategic planning and the HRM function. So it really defines na both. In the HRM functions, what is the administrative linkages in designing the strategic planning. The HRM function in designing the one-way, integrating the strategic planning for one-way linkage. And then the HRM function giving emphasis to the strategic planning for two-way linkages. And then the HRM function finally and the strategic planning integrating to the integrative linkages. So this is the role of the HRM in the strategy formulation by understanding the strategic, the HRM function, linking it to all of those four aspects mentioned. Now, the strategy formulation would also emphasize about you know, understanding the mission, the goals of the company, the vision and the mission of the goals of the company, and then aligning it to the reconciling it into the external analysis, seeking opportunities and threats. So, who are these competitors? The external analysis would be on the competitor side, with the related industries. However, the internal analysis would also command understanding of the strength and the weaknesses of the internal composition of the organization for you to be able to come up with the strategic choices based on the recommendation being formulated by the study. Now, the five components of the strategic management process are the following. So, a mission is a statement of the organization. So, what can be seen in the mission statements. So, therefore, goals. Now, goals number one are what the organization hope to achieve in the medium to long-term future. So, these are the what we need to see, in the formulation of the strategic management process. Okay, under the mission. Yeah. And then external analysis also will examine the operations and the environment, to identify the opportunities and the threats of the environment that being affected by the industry related. Now, in identifying the strength and the weaknesses, you need the internal analysis. So the employees, the process, the operations of the inside of how management is conducting their business, and that is in the internal analysis. Now, for the strategic choices, it is related to the organization strategy, describing the way the organization will try, and attempt to fulfill the missions being stated, and achieve the goals and objectives of the companies aiming for. So this is the strategy formulation. Now, in the implementation, it is important for the system to recognize the performance, the project market strategy to the achievement of the performance. So, but then in the strategic implementation, you would try to assess and try to get a lot of areas of concern for you to develop a better performance analysis. So what are these? The informations has to have relevant emphasis on the product or market identification of your company. The structure, the internal structure of your organization is also being considered. Now, this under the SHRM as a division. So what we emphasize here are the information that are needed, the task design in the job description, job responsibilities, and then the reward system. So these are the benefits in the under wage and benefits and wage and your salaries and wages. And then the selection, training, and development are the ones that would strengthen the activities that HR are coming out for them to be able to sustain performance. So that's strategy formulation. Now, in the HRM practices, these are needed for you to be able to understand each process. So number one, knowing the job analysis. In the job analysis, the process is of getting detailed information about how to go over the job. So there, as a responsibility of an employee. So job analysis it is. So there. Now, the recruitment is part of the HRM function. It is the process from which the organization are looking for talents and applicants for an open position. So therefore, recruitment is has to be good enough to determine the necessary people to join in the company. Now, training as part of the HRM practices is also an activity wherein a planned effort to facilitate learning and enhancing knowledge, providing skills development, and strengthening behavior and attitude for the employee. Now, the job design actually is making decisions about the task no? So it has to be in conformance with the application wherein everybody will be involved and interlinkages from the different departments. So the design should be maximized at that to complement one another as a team, as an organization. Now, the selection is identifying the applicants with the right knowledge and appropriate skills and ability, to withstand challenges doing performing his job. Now, development is under the training, so there. Job analysis is under the job design. Recruitment is under the selection, and training is for the development of the employee's ability, to withstand and meet challenges. So these are HRM practices that are being, compared and aligned to. And the performance management will ensure that employees, activities, and outcomes are congruent, and relative with the objectives and the goals of where the company is going to and and heading to. So there. Yeah. Also, the performance management will also acknowledge, the design and structuring of the pay structure, the incentive, relative benefits, and of course, so life balance, under the labor and employee relations. Okay, so that is how HRM practices are being induced. Okay, so what are the types of strategies? Strategic types are under Porter's generic strategies, and the overall cost these are being engaged when determining the overall cost, leadership, or differentiation. Going further, so HRM needs, a lot of strategic typographies. According to here, there are different strategies that are required, from the different or applied to the different types of employees. Number one is role behavior. So there, it's a cost strategy seeking efficiency, and therefore they define the skills they need in employee and use that worker uh, maximizing its talent and skills to seek cost-saving ideas. So therefore, parang, maximizing their effort. Now, the differentiation firms need creative risk takers. So therefore, they want to experiment. So others, they wanted to try out some talents and then just see the potentials. But it's a, it's a risk that that company has to go through. Now, the directional strategies would command the external growth strategy and the concentration strategy, and downsizing, internal growth, mergers and acquisition are terms that we will be discussing a while later for us to better understand this concept. Now, the role of HR in providing a competitive advantage. Remember that the policies, regulation are being instituted and developed by the HR based on the goals directed by the CEOs of the company. So emergent strategies, meaning those that evolve from the grassroots to the organization. So it's getting the talent internally, so they see the potentials in one employee and then honing them through uh, time element and your practice and experience, and evolving, from the low level capacity to the CEO level, evolving from the grassroots of the organization, enhancing firm competitiveness even because that talent would definitely, acknowledge and appreciate those strategy, that you are being valued as an employee. So so these are some of the kinds of strategy formulation that needs, for the company to withstand competition. Remember that strategic human resource management uh, is as an HR, HRM would command a better understanding about how to develop companies, how to come up with the right decisions of the structures, strengthening the structures of human resource for them to be able to withstand competition of the related industry. Okay, so there, no. So class, I guess I have the dispense the right information about human resource management under gaining a competitive advantage over the other competitors. That is discussed here in chapter 2 of the strategic human resource management. So thank you and looking forward to hear from you again in our next session. Okay, good day everyone. Thank you.